Alright, this is my first attempt at a Zune 80 Bluetooth mod. I've done a lot of Bluetooth mods. I've done a lot of Zune repairs. I've repaired the countless HDs, 4GB, 8GB, Zune flashes, Zune 80s and 120s. This is an 80. And a bunch of Zune 30s. And I even use a Bluetooth mod for the Zune 30 that looks like this. This is it. Although this module is not my favorite. I found a much better one using this. Oh, let me get in the scene here. Well, damn, out of focus. Well, regardless, the KCX BT emitter V1.7. Much better guy, smaller profile, and you can plug in an antenna, your own, and remove this part for an even lower profile, which is what we're doing today. I've definitely used this with great success. These aren't always available. It's usually some variation of this. It's actually a 2-for-1. And I'm Romozutu. I've done a lot of posting on Reddit and Zune about Bluetooth mods, repairs. I even have my own custom glass, and I'll link it for replacing one of these cracked guys. But here it is in all its glory. This was actually used to be my mom's, and it was black, and I found a decent replacement to get it fixed up. So couldn't help myself and go red. I've only seen one blue one. I prefer a blue, but we'd make do with what we can. So like I said, I'm going to try to Bluetooth this today. I don't know how it will, if it'll go well. If it goes well, I'll post it. If it doesn't, I won't. How about that? I usually use one of these to help open, especially for the really tough 120s, which for whatever reason are very brittle along the edges, and they usually fray a lot when you try to get in there. On the sides, we don't have to worry about it with this model. I just have to use a T4, unscrew the 2 top screws after taking off that plastic bit, the signal port cover, you could say. Let's put these somewhere where we won't lose them. There it is. These 2 top plastic tabs tend to break easily, so try not to over-tighten these if you're ever taking your own apart. And I do have standard batteries for this guy, but today we're using an extended battery, because if I'm going to put Bluetooth in here, I've got an idea using this. These are really easy to open as long as you use a guitar pick and you kind of run it along the edges there. You see where I'm prying the material apart? I wouldn't say really easy, but a lot easier than the 120 model, which is harder to get into. I'm going to show that today, but I might show it later if this gets a lot of attention. See how the side's cracked open now? All I have to do is run this down the side, pry it apart a little bit. I got a nice gap. Look at that. And I can do the other side, or I guess I could just keep going on the side I already did, but better do it this way. Get a guitar pick in there, run it down, let the material separate. Close enough. It's coming apart. There it is. Okay. Yeah, I put a replacement battery in here. Put this off to the side. This is usually what they look like. I trust the blue label batteries more than I trust most. I've had the most luck with these blue label ones. I can put a link where to get these as well, but I think the link I use prefers large quantity orders. Alright, next step is next. I don't like how these clips can get really brittle when you're popping the case open. This one's already falling off. Once you lose too many of these clips, your case is not going to have a very good close to it. You see this one in the corner is already kind of damaged. Yeah, I don't remember if that was me or a previous guy. Previous owner, I should say. But okay. For this mod, we can't reuse the original HDD, so it just takes up too much space. The idea is actually to I can bend this back because there's no clip there. The idea is to use just this space for a battery and an SSD. These are the go-to SSDs in the Zune community, although I've seen a few that do work as alternatives, but this has been the most reliable one. Sandwich them after taking it out of its case like this. So this area, battery and hard drive, and then this area leaves just enough room to get a little creative in there, but a Bluetooth module. So that's the plan. That's what we're doing today. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I actually have a spare circuit board. Yep, for Zune 80 or 120 here. My intent today is to, wire power. So there's a mod that someone on Reddit made. I'll give them credit in the description, I suppose, for using a bigger battery while reusing the original BMS circuit of the old battery. Obviously, this is not an original. So I have a bunch of old discarded original batteries, and I'll pull one of them from that for this mod. So this is going to have to be removed. For replacing a battery in general, or I guess in this case for removing this one, you don't have to rip this off, but I'm going to do that. All you have to do is touch these solder points and pull the wire out. I suppose it's also important not to touch. You can arc the power and ground if you touch them together. That's why a lot of batteries you see will have one of the terminals taped up so that they don't come into contact with each other. I'll pull this battery out. This is a healthy battery, by the way, so I might reuse it in a different Zune. But yeah. We're going to attach a signal wire here when the Zune's wireless signal turns on and off. For the Zune 30, we actually use this exact point right here. The top left one on this little black, whatever you want to call it, electronic component. This is what says turn wireless on, off. And if we connect that to the SHDN, the shutdown function on the Pololu board, which is our voltage regulator, it can actually turn the whole Bluetooth circuit on and off with the same command, making it so that your Zune's wireless function can control whether or not your Bluetooth is on, which makes a lot of sense. So that's how we're going to do this today. The other thing that's a little more complicated is I need to get into, I believe the points are here and here for the aux jack. Let me consult the diagram. Yeah. Maybe the lower point behind this. But I'm going to have to take out this whole circuit to work on it. So I'll probably have to unscrew that and just carefully peel it off. I think it's all glued in place. Which means that this antenna wire is going to have to come out of its siding here. For the Bluetooth signal, the whole caveat about Zune 80s and 120s and why no one attempts, or very few attempt to do the Bluetooth for this one, is there's poor signal penetration when you have a back metal housing. So there is one spot where it lets signal through, and it's up here. So you can either use the built-in black antenna, or as another Redditor pointed out to me, you can use a DS Lite antenna, connect it to this spot on your Bluetooth module right here, and it should transfer signal pretty well. Not all antennas will work the same, and your mileage may vary. But let's get started with the important bits. So first things first, battery has to come out, and this is actually, I mean, I guess I'm also technically showing how to replace a battery in one of these as like a byproduct of trying to Bluetooth it, but here we go. I usually use this pine sol, just because I got this custom, what do you want to call it, soldering iron tip, and it's really great for this because I can get really precise. I always leave it at 380 for everything I do nowadays. I know it's probably not for the best. I know it's a little too hot, but I don't leave it in contact very long. So yeah, it's that simple. You just touch and pull the wire out and away. Same for ground. Now, since my soldering iron gets so hot, sometimes if I'm touching the wire too close to where it's soldered to, the wire will melt where my tweezers are touching it. So this whole thing is just really easy to mess up. Alright, there. Now if you have the original battery, you don't even have to unsolder that because we would be working with this part. Probably shouldn't use this to point. Whenever I'm done with whatever I'm soldering, unsoldering, I get a little bit of brass wool, clean my soldering iron, make sure there's no solder left on the tip. I know it looks super oxidized. And then that's it. Unplug, put it off to the side. Make sure it's not touching anything. I usually have a better stand, but I'm using a different setup today to showcase this. But alright, batteries removed. So how do we put this in? It only has 2 wires. Yeah, exactly. We're going to reuse, like I said, the BMS of an old one, and we're going to need to unhouse this SSD. So this is a tri-wing. I really should label these better. Okay, here. This is probably the right one. I'll leave this there. You don't have to pull out the motherboard for this, which is nice. But you do have to pull this SSD out of its housing because we only have a certain thickness we can work with inside the Zune. And it's very important to keep your volume down for mods like these. This is pretty standard. I guess even for the Zune 30 to do this. Oh, there it goes. 2, 3, and 4. I know this is a bit of a long form video. Feel free to fast forward wherever you need to go. I'm not even sure I'll use this voice track once I publish this, but I wanted to show MadMod Labs did a full Zune 30 Bluetooth tutorial, and he did a kind of like short form content where he sort of jumped around, didn't show the entire process. I wanted to show the entire process for the Zune 80/120 Bluetooth mod. Oh, that's scary, but there we go. I'll pull this off. Might get people saying, hey, why are you using an electrostatic glove? I don't know, man, can't be bothered. But I do use, oh, there it goes, Kapton tape to wrap this SSD. I don't use a lot, but as long as it's fully insulated and not coming into contact with anything else, then you're pretty much golden. I like to wrap it just under that black tab. This is my Zune. This is not a customer's Zune. So I'm allowed to take a little less care, I hope. Usually use this tiny Swiss Army knife scissors to cut wherever I need to cut. There's my first layer, and then I just did 2 more layers to insulate the rest. Kapton tape is nice because it is a thermal and electrical insulating tape, and it's very thin. It's very common in electronics, and it works well in this case. But if you were wondering how do I put an SSD inside a Zune, be it a Zune 30, whatever Zune you're using, this is generally the way. I tend to keep a low profile online, so I've never made a tutorial before. This is my first tutorial, so pardon if it's out of focus a lot, or if some of my work is clumsy. It is hard to work with an autofocusing camera. This might also be a bit of a long video. Maybe I'll also release a shorter one that covers the brass tacks, or one where I've done the prep work ahead of time. But there, that's pretty much all you need. Just make sure none of the electric components can touch anything else, so you don't want a random short causing issues. There. That still snaps up, and we're ready to rock. Now we can remove the old one. Alright. And these ZIF cables are very finicky, that's what I'll call them. Very sensitive. They don't like to be moved around a lot, so let's not mess with it. But look, great used 80GB drive that I can use in a Zune 30 later. Actually, that one might be 120. I might have already maxed this guy out. We'll see. I don't know what's the importance behind this foil. I know it's like keep things in place. Don't know why it has to be foil. Okay. So there's the hard drive. Let's do the battery next so I can fold this all down and get everything arranged. I've got a jar of batteries. Is that a safe way to store batteries? Probably not a safe way to store batteries. But I need to dispose of these sometime soon. And until I do, I've got a jar of batteries. What I'm looking for now is one of the original Zune 80/120 batteries. It doesn't have a lot of, I guess you could say, corrosion. You can tell there's like some green dust in some of these circuits because they're old. So try to avoid that. Might still work, but I'm not here trying for might today. I just want it to work. This is too short, I can't work with that. And it looks like maybe this will do nicely. Look at that pillow. Very spicy. That's probably why I removed it in the first place. You want to be very careful with this mod. It is not, I mean, anytime you use a bigger battery than stock, you run the risk of a greater fire hazard. And this already looks like a fire hazard if I just poke it wrong, so I'll probably be getting rid of these old batteries tomorrow, but let me find somewhere safe where I won't poke into this. You want to remove the Kapton tape and isolate the battery managing system or circuit. So that we can repurpose it for this mod. Somebody on Reddit would do this for their PSPs, and they thought, hey, this might be work for Zune 80s and 120s. And after trying it out, works great. The only thing is, like I said, you want to be very careful with lithium-ion batteries in general. So, you know, use these at your own risk and know what you're getting into as a modder. Like, I would not be leaving any electronics on my dashboard in the middle of summer, just in general. Okay. Let's cut right here, this metal strip. There's one. And let's cut right here for 2. Alright, we got what we need. Crap. Jesus. Remind me to cut that out. Okay. This is the battery management circuit. I don't think we'll be able to get into focus. Yeah, too many things on the table, but if you look closely, there will be a B- and a B+. Minus is for ground, plus is for power. And these go exactly where you'd expect, but let's work on this first. Trusty rusty soldering iron. When you desolder a component, it works better if you add, probably if you add flex first of all, but it works better if you add a little bit of solder to it too. So these 2 metal terminals are connected to these metal battery tabs that we just snipped, but we need to get these off, add a little bit of solder, and then connect those other wires. So that's what we're going to do. Got to 380. Let's get down to business. Okay. So, first things first. Let's add a little solder. It's probably not great to breathe in these fumes too, by the way. But, you know, take your own health risks at your own discretion. It'd be nicer if I had something better to hold this besides my fingers and some tweezers. But there we go. That's off. Bye. Now time for the second one. That came off pretty easily. Okay. You want to be careful that you didn't strip off any other electronic components. I did get a little close to the solder on this resistor, but it looks fine. Everything looks good. These 3 tiny resistors are especially prone to falling off, so be careful there. And now we're going to add some solder to these points here. Make it a nice little round terminal. I said round. There. That looks pretty now. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Okay. Alright. Touching down, adding solder. There we go. Very nice. From here, some fun stuff is going to happen. We're going to add this 1500 milliamp hour battery into this circuit, like I previously explained. Plus with plus, minus with minus. You might be able to make it out in the video, but there's a tiny plus right there. And this is just not stable to work on, but let's see what we can do. There we go, much better. That'll do it. And then the negative wire. Alright, and if you are just installing an extended battery and an SSD in your Zune 80, you'd already be well on your way to done. But we are going for a little bit more than that today. Okay, let's get these back where they belong. White usually goes on top. You're going to hear me say usually because some batteries they come miscolor coded from the factory, and you have to switch these wires sometimes to get this to work properly. Oh, and there's my first burn. Okay. Anyway, white wire on top. We go with some tweezers to make it behave. Bend it downwards a little bit. Position it. And these are very simple. You just have to touch it to where it belongs. I touch the solder, melt it, push the wire through, and done. Give it a second to cool off before you pull it out. Next. It's crazy that this is actually also a battery replacement tutorial, an SSD upgrade tutorial, extended battery tutorial in one. But I wanted to, I kind of wanted it to be, I wanted to contribute something to the Zune community after the Zune community has been so kind to me. I set out to offer this little repair service after I managed to fix my first Zune HD for someone. I really liked, the whole experience, them being so grateful, me overcoming a challenge, something I didn't know how to do. Then I realized there's probably a lot of people, especially after the Guardians of the Galaxy revival, and after the Texas cell phone ban most recently in schools, that want to use these old MP3 players again. So why not give back to the community, make a dedicated repair service, which I did for a year, but then I wanted to make my own sort of impact. And well, hopefully this leaves a positive impact. Yep, that's what I meant about kind of sort of melting the wire a little bit, but it looks like not a significant break there. So that's done. I can clean off my soldering stick, pine seal, till it's nice and shiny. Unplug it, put it off to the side. Okay, now we close this up and we test it first of all, make sure everything's working properly. And close this. Oh yeah, forgot about that. So you really don't want to have anything that can short electrically, especially a battery management circuit. You see how they're always wrapped in Kapton tape at the end of a battery? There's one in here. We're kind of piggybacking them back and forth. We want to just make sure that it is wrapped up as well. We don't want that to make contact and get grounded on anything, or you can lose power, short your battery, and have other complications. So in short, use Kapton tape to insulate your battery management circuit. I'll have to undo this later, so I'm just doing a simple strip for now, because we are going to also tap into the circuit to power the Bluetooth circuit once we're done there. Yeah, okay, good enough for now as a temporary solution. Let's put the hard drive in place. Sometimes it's a little iffy getting it. Oh, I also don't want this. This is just extra thickness we don't need. Alrighty then. Make sure it's all the way in. Put that down. You can stack your battery on top. What I normally do for this mod is tape this down, because I can use some foil from the original. Tape this down. Don't want this, adds thickness. And then we can manage this into here. And honestly, this is usually what my extended battery mod looks like. Maybe not quite so DIY. A little bit better taped up, wrapped up, but that's the gist of it. You got a battery, you got an SSD. All you gotta do is close it up, plug it into the Zune software, and you have a SSD and an extended battery in your Zune 8120. But that's not all we're doing here today. We also want to add Bluetooth. So I have a diagram, and maybe I'll digitalize it and flash it at this point in the video. But you have power and ground, and usually on a Zune 30, when you do the Bluetooth mod, let's see if I remember correctly. Yeah, you want to put the power onto this point, the ground onto this point, and you want to, the same signal wire for shutting the Bluetooth on and off comes from this top left corner of this black chip. And then your headphone connections are left, right, and ground here. You don't touch these two. I once made that mistake, and I made another post on Reddit to clear that up. But left channel, right channel, ground. These are technically also ground, but they are like video ground. This is very sophisticated aux jack, and it can do video out. So this is some of what plays into that. And one of these also does, it's a detector to see if when you unplug the jack, it pauses music. So if you start messing with these, you might take away video or that functionality of pausing music when the jack comes out. Another neat thing to do is if you are pairing Bluetooth and you're struggling, you can't see the LED that tells you how the Bluetooth connection's coming along. You can plug in wired headphones here. You'll hear in most cases, depending which circuit you get, the Bluetooth circuit talking to you saying pairing, paired. So it's a neat analog way to diagnose. But okay, we're not doing a Zune 30 today. We're doing this. Now I'm going to pause the video at this point to format the hard drive on Windows, and I'll show you all the process of that. I'm not going to show how to set up the Zune software today. There's a lot of tutorials for that. And then I will be building a Bluetooth circuit from scratch, which should take a while too. And while the Bluetooth circuit that I'm going to be building from scratch can just be applied into a lot of different cases, like this could easily just go into the Zune 30, or it could go into a DS, I suppose, if you make it low profile enough. This brick makes it a little harder to do, but regardless. I'm going to get this hard drive initialized on the Zune software so that we can make sure we're not making a mistake so far, and then I will build a Bluetooth circuit, and then I'll install it, and we'll see if the Bluetooth works properly or not. Be right back. Oh, maybe you can hear me now. We're launching the Zune software. We're going to initialize the Zune 80 hard drive. I already have some 48 sample songs that we can play with here. Pardon, just bear with me while I get oriented. I want to come over here to devices. This is where this is where the Zune's going to pop up, but the software is going to hang a little bit for me because this PC is not as strong as it should be. There we go. I'm plugging in the I'm plugging in the Zune 80 now, in the previous part of this video, and it needs to charge a little bit. So we're going to let it charge, and I will fast forward through this part of the video to save everybody some time. For the Zune 80s and 120s, as long as you see a faint white charging symbol on your screen, you can use your phone light to kind of flash it on there. You'll know whether or not it's working properly or charging properly. And there it is, booting up. Okay. So I got a number 3 on the screen that says please wait. A number 4 and it says clearing contents, which just means it's initializing the hard drive for the first time. And then I'll say connect your Zune to your PC, and you'll hear your PC make a fun little system noise. And the software should pick it up after that. And if it doesn't, I'll unplug it and replug it. Well, it's working now. That was a pain and a half. Yep, there it goes. Your Zune will reboot a few times, and eventually you'll see the home screen. Now we're going to sync a few songs to it, just to have something to play and test. You get update complete here, and it'll ask you what you want to name your Zune once it's done formatting and initializing itself. Not enough space. Okay, successful update. Great. What do you want to name your Zune? Zune is fine for now. And you can't even make an account anymore. Let's just do, let's just do items I choose so you don't run into issues. This is irrelevant now too. Total space used, I have 58 gigabytes free, so let's grab all my music and synchronize it. Do you only have 47 MP3s? No, I don't only have 47 MP3s, but I was just trying to sync a 50-song playlist to a different Zune, and well, this is enough to test whether or not Bluetooth works. So mission accomplished. I know this is sad to see an 80 gigabyte go to a 64 gigabyte, but I don't have any spare 128 gigabytes. They're too popular, too in demand for my customers. So as soon as it says that it's done syncing, there, we're all done here. So I'm going to stop the video and we'll pick up where we left off. So this is after formatting or initializing the Zune on the PC. Everything's working as expected for the most part. Well, for the most part, it's just working. The battery is going to mark a little low until we do a couple of charge cycles of fully charging it, fully discharging it. But I don't got time for that right now. I'll do it after. We want to hold back and down as the shortcut to shut the Zune down. Keep holding it. And it's off. Okay. So extended battery mod, SSD mod, went great. Now what? Now, we've got a lot of soldering ahead of us. So, I'm going to put this bad boy aside. And we're going to create a Bluetooth module. Now, there's a couple of shortcuts I've made, and I'm sure you can tell. When I connect these to each other, I want this to be more flexible. I bend the pins one way or another for the 5-volt isolator. And I'll explain the reasoning behind everything in a second here. So, I now have a tinier, more efficient, antenna-capable Bluetooth module. And I probably will snap off this piece so that it prioritizes the antenna versus the built-in one. This is a voltage regulator. Usually these require a bit higher voltage than the 3.7-ish volts that your battery can provide. And since it's a USB module, this is technically not a USB module, so it really doesn't require, I think it can function on as low as 3.7 volts, just straight up. But we're using this still as a glorified power switch, thanks to the shutdown function. This, we're using it to isolate noise. We actually use a combination of this 5-volt isolator, this inductor, and this capacitor, which is kind of overkill. I think maybe just the capacitor would be enough to get rid of most of the noise, but this, all three, makes the audio very clean for a Bluetooth mod. And I've read some of what other users have done. You can technically ground it somewhere else and you won't have the same issue, but we're not going to ground it somewhere else today. We're going to ground it to the battery. So first things first, when I make this module, looks like it's the right size. But since this is a bit of a tighter space, I want to make sure I trim the legs that come out when I do this. So I usually grab this and grab my Pololu circuit and get in here, pierce the legs through, and just kind of bend it upwards just enough so that this can rest mostly flat like this. This helps a lot. And just using less wires, less components, less to do, less to solder. This I usually trim out off the two legs. I'm just going to do that now on the inductor. And the direction actually I think does matter. So there goes leg 1, there goes leg 2. I might trim it shorter than that further down the line, but that's good enough so far. Okay, I have this, I'm not even sure which gauge this is, but I have this spool of wire and I can link it, and it's been been everything I need, but I usually trim the leads a little bit just to make everything a little easier. I just use a simple wire cutter. There's a whole process to get like a USB Bluetooth module ready, where you have to unsolder the aux jack and then you know, drop some solder on the left, right, ground channels, make sure it's grounded properly, make sure this doesn't accidentally flip from transmitting to receiving. We're actually going to borrow this capacitor as well, so I'm just going to scavenge it. So let me go ahead and grab that. Just waiting for this to heat up properly. Had enough time to cool down. Gonna melt one side. Pull it apart a bit, melt the other side. And we got our capacitor back. I'm actually out of capacitors at the moment, but I don't really want to go and order a whole pack when I just need one for my purposes today. And you know what? I should repurpose this as well. So I am going to. Well, repurposing this whole thing kind of defeats the purpose, right? So let me try to do this from scratch. For the capacitor, the orientation does matter. And you want the positive leg on the 5 volts, the negative leg on ground right next to it. This is very small, so it's very hard to see. I have a diagram right here. And I tried to make it mostly to scale. So, capacitor, 5 volts, ground. We're only going to use 5 volts ground, and we're going to use audio left, right, and ground right here. Left, right, ground. And then we're going to use this connect. We're going to ground out connect, so that every time this module receives power, it goes into pair mode. There's another Reddit user who put me onto that, who I'll try to give credits to in the description. But I think an interesting challenge for me personally is I've never removed the aux jack on a Zune 81/120, so that'll be interesting to learn today. But this pretty much sums it up. I'll try to, like I said, make a PDF of this, a pretty one, so that anyone else following in my footsteps can learn a good way to do this. But I'm kind of filled with choice paralysis here. Where do I begin? Okay, focus up, focus up. There we go. Let's see. First of all, I'll need some flux this time. And I'm just lazy. It's probably not the best way to go about it, but I usually just grab the end of my solder wire, dip it into some flux, and I suddenly have exactly what I need to solder. But first I need to bend this capacitor back into a usable shape. These legs are all, I guess I bent them to a different purpose, so, and I've been taking too long to solder, so I put that in my safety rest position while I work on this. Now I can never remember which side of these legs is positive and which side is ground. There is like a little part that juts out on one leg, and I'll tell you right now which it is in a moment. Okay, the part that juts out here, the little hump, that's the positive leg. And what you can, I guess, reference it for specifically for this capacitor, which I'll try to link, is the side with text, with that little symbol. It's going to go face down. with this side going to positive, this side going to ground. I need to keep bending this into place. I'll thread it through the top. Come on. Okay, that's a little bent out of shape, so I'm going to clip it. Try and do everything on screen here. And then I try to get it through the holes. It's a lot easier if you left the legs on. But here we go. Okay, got it through. It's already bent kind of the way we want it. I'm going to bend each of these legs out just to make this easier. So that they're not too close together. And hey, there we go. Good enough. Okay, now it's soldering time. When you solder dissimilar metals, or I guess any metals, you want flux to help them be friends. Flux is like the alcohol of the soldering world. A bit of social lubricant for metals. Okay, soldering iron's warmed up. You want to touch it to where you want to solder to, and then just bring your flux covered solder to the right place. Now we do the bottom side too. Get a little more flux. And I made a mess. Whoops. But there's a lot of ways you can clean up a mess. This is the way I'll clean up this one. There we go. A little bit too much solder there. And I could remove some. But, I mean, that'll do. Okay, the other place you want to add something is you want to connect the connect port to audio ground, and then we're going to connect audio ground to ground. So we're going to make a bit of a McDonald's symbol with some wires. And why not use, well, I'll use yellow wire, I guess, but I'll cut some new wires. They don't need to be very long. They can loop a bit on the long side. And I have a bad habit of always holding my soldering iron in my hand. There we go. I just want a bit of the wire exposed. I'm sure I could just use a lighter, like I've seen some other people do, to make it shrink, but I don't know. I'm used to doing this from electronics class. So if it works, it works. So I want to connect it to connect and to audio ground. There we go. So I'm going to put it here. I just need something under it. Oh, actually it's held in place pretty well already. So I'm just going to solder it from the top. Looks like I didn't use too much solder this time. Okay, that looks good-ish. Time to solder the other side from the top. And I keep dropping everything. Got a little flex going. Too much flex. Not enough flex. Right enough flex. And solder right there. It's a lot harder to see what I'm doing when I got this camera in the way, but there we go. Looks good. All right. Now we want to ground, audio ground to ground. And we'll come back for audio left and right. Technically audio ground. That's what we're going to solder to the headphone jack, but we're just prepping the parts we need to prep for now. Okay. Let's get another yellow cable. Cut it a bit longer this time. When I said a bit, I guess I really meant a bit. It's a little short. Let me get it. There we go. Okay. So we want one end on power ground and one end on audio ground. This is where it starts getting interesting when you got two wires going to the same place. Is this thing on? Yep. If you hear a click, that's me accidentally pressing the connect button over and over on the bottom of this. Okay, that's not great, but good enough. Maybe we add a little bit of solder for this next part. Let me just add solder directly to my iron. Hold that in place with my nail. I know some people, because of how difficult it can be working with wire, they use like this really, I don't even know what it is, but it's like a very thin wire. But I like this old-fashioned wire. Old-fashioned. Just a different kind, really. Just trying to get it lined up. Now I'm going to touch this down right there. And I made another mess. Okay. Okay, I'm really butchering this. Okay, time to clean this. Try again. Okay, got it that time. Not the cleanest soldering I've ever done, but it got done. There's a little McDonald's M. Now we can move on. So far, connect is on audio ground and audio ground is on ground. It's all connected together. It's going to be interesting to connect the rest. But so far, so good. Okay. Another fun part now is to connect this to a wire so it can have some flexibility, just the way I prefer to do it. This side came out a little bit better, but I guess as long as we're skipping around, I'm going to start with this little module. It's already in the right position. We want V out and ground going into the isolator. And I want to balance it on something that's the right size, so I guess I'll balance it on something that's itself. Yeah. A lot of soldering is just figuring out what kind of shortcuts you want to use. Guess I'm not doing this very well. Perfect. It's balanced. Okay, let's do this. And my camera is running out of battery. So hopefully I don't have to pause this recording halfway through. It's already long-winded. Alright, there we go. Add some solder, add some flux, and add some solder. I don't think I added anything there. There. One's a lot cleaner, but they're both connected solidly. Okay. And then my favorite thing to do is to use a purple wire for the signal. This one is going to have to be a bit on the longer side to reach across the whole Zune. I'll shorten it if I need to shorten it. This is definitely overkill, but I like to keep my wires long because you can cut a wire shorter, but to grow it longer you have to replace the whole wire. Okay, let's get some more flux. Some more solder. We're going to do the shutdown switch. There we go. My light source is coming from the right side down, so I realize if me and my right hand are covering a lot of lighting, I apologize. I'm just going to thread the wire through, and that's it. We got our signal wire in place. Looks good. The voltage one doesn't really have to be very long. and I've recently started using green and brown for power and ground because I am running out of red and black. So let's make these short, because they don't have very far to go when the battery module is right there. You want to add power, green for power. Alright, power as in VN. So when I get my solder, flux it just a bit, then touch down. Alright, clean. Add my power. There it is. I just kind of heat up the solder I already put there and then just push it through. Time to expose the leads on my ground wire. And this power and ground wires that I'm installing, this is to the battery management circuit that our battery is already soldered to. We're going to reuse that part for power. We could go all the way down to where power, the black and red cables connect. Here, I'll just show you. We could tap into here for power, but there's really no difference between tapping into here and tapping into north on that battery management circuit we're piggybacking off of. So that is what we're doing later. Button this all up. Yeah. That looks like it could use a little more solder. There we go. Okay, so you kind of want it to look like this. Hope you can see. Bring it up and it goes out of focus. So I got purple wire for shutdown, green wire for voltage in, brown wire for ground. These are going to the battery. 3.7 volts should be coming through here. And we have voltage out. So you get power coming in, 3.7 volts coming to the Pololu board. You really don't have to step it up much, but you can step it up just a tad. I don't think it affects even how loud your Bluetooth is. Like that's not, it just eats more power. So you want to just step it up enough that if there's like a small power dip, it doesn't turn your Bluetooth off and recycle it. Okay, so the Pololu board, power comes in here, and then this voltage in, voltage out, voltage after being stepped up, you can rotate this potentiometer to step it up just like maybe 3.7 volts to 4 is pretty reasonable. If you have a voltmeter, I have a voltmeter, we can measure. And then power comes to the 5-volt isolator, and then it goes out of these legs. I'm going to trim these, because what we don't want, let me clean my iron again. What we don't want, sorry, I'm not going to talk over these sound effects. What we don't want is these to be so bent, because we have a lot less space working inside a Zune 80 than a Zune 30. So I have a flush cutter right here. I'm going to trim these legs off just enough so that they're not raising the height profile too much. Now I know what you're thinking. What if you cut one of these things and it flies at your eyeballs? Maybe you're not thinking of that. But I do, and that's why I wear safety glasses here. Do I look stupid? Maybe. But do I catch things in my eyes? Not today. Okay. So this is starting to look a lot more like this circuit. And this is starting to look a lot less like a Bluetooth circuit now that I took off the actual Bluetooth part of it. But all it needs now is one solid wire coming out of one leg and one inductor in the middle wire coming out the other leg. And this needs our audio wires. I'm going to change course, install my 3 audio wires. I don't remember which color I usually use for which, but I think I'll use yellow for L, orange for R, and blue for ground. I usually use blue for ground. Okay, getting close to 380. And I'm just gonna, well, I can't see on that side, so I don't know which two it is. There we go. That's audio L. Get a little bit more flex going. You don't need a lot. This thing has lasted me forever, since I'm not doing like large scale electronics work. Time to do it for R, and I don't want to melt this wire more. There we go. I think tough shit, I did melt this wire more. And then audio ground is still coming out of here. But since I can see them up top, L is yellow, R is orange, audio ground is blue, yellow, orange, blue. Alright, I'm just going to feed it from up top so that I don't run into issues with that wire underneath. I like to use some of the curve of this iron to melt things a little quicker. Gotcha. That's one down. Time for the second one. And that's 2 down. And the third one, I'm not going to be able to punch it through. So I'm just going to lay it as best as I can and make sure it's making solid contact. Okay. Everything seems okay. Connection-wise, we'll find out later if it's not. But there's our 3 headphone jack wires installed. The only thing we need to do now is finish part A, connect it to part B, and connect it to the Zune, of course, which should get interesting. Okay, so you want the yellow side to face the Bluetooth circuit and the silver side to come through the positive end of your 5-volt isolator. Should be ground, positive, in, out. But these legs are a bit finicky in that they're very close to this board, so I want to bend them. I don't want to bend them towards the board. I want to bend them out and away so that I can work on them without my soldering iron touching too much other stuff. Okay, there. Good. So one wire coming from here and one wire coming from there. I think let's I mean, I don't know how much the colors matter at this point, but let's use I guess green and brown again. I just have to remember which one's which. These don't need to be that long either, because the Bluetooth circuit doesn't have to be that far away. I try to give it a little bit of wiggle room, like these two cables, so I can fold it in on itself if I need to. When you're working with a limited space, you know. And I've held this iron in my hand too long again. Gonna clean it, put it off to the side, make sure that hot tip's not touching anything. Gonna expose the ends of my wires. And actually, since this is my positive wire, I'm actually cutting a little bit out of this. And I'm not cutting it quite in half. So I want two pieces, one for each leg of my inductor. This is one of my least favorite parts of doing this, but I appreciate the flexibility more for doing it this way. And then the ground wire. Ground wire is very simple. No fancy components going in the middle of this wire. Okay, we said power ground, power ground. Let's do this first. I can bring one of my soldering legs over. Looks like a little Doc Ock arm. I can hold my inductor in place and work on it. Hey Rob, why haven't you been doing that this whole time? You can just hold everything in place. Well, I know, but I don't want to accidentally let the force of these clip a small resistor off or something. Call it paranoia. We're going to add a little solder, a little flux. And of course, after every soldering project, it's good to clean off excess flux using some IPA and such. I say and such, but I mean just IPA. I'm sure there's a lot of you out there who have better methods of soldering. I can say, oh, actually, why didn't you do this and why didn't you do that? And I'm always happy to learn. So if you think like, hey, Rob, why didn't you just XYZ? Go ahead and leave that info down in the comments, because that's great for me. I'm always here to learn, provided that the lessons are taught respectfully and not saying, hey, you moron. That is absolutely not what you're supposed to be doing. Well, I'm not an expert here. I'm a self-taught soldering guy. So the thing about being self-taught is you gotta keep learning whenever you can. Okay, there. That works. I guess I could cover up the whole thing with shrink wrap, but before I covered up just a little bit of each leg, just enough to cover it up. So I'm gonna get some shrink wrap, and I actually need to put my camera to charge. So I'm gonna put it to charge for a while, I'm gonna get some shrink wrap, and then we'll get this guy handled, then we'll get everything put in place. Alright, we're back. Next thing's next. I suppose I could put a shrink wrap all the way through this inductor, or vice versa, put the inductor all the way through the shrink wrap, but I like to see which direction these guys go. You're welcome to do this any way you prefer, but this is my way. This one's a bit long. Slide that in and over. And if I do it just right, I can still see which side is purple and which side is black. There, that's great. So how do I get my shrink wrap to shrink? I add heat. I just heat up the soldering iron. Now I know that the black side is towards this and the purple side is towards this. And this is my positive end. Ground, positive in, ground, positive out, so it'll go towards the outside, and this right side will connect there. So I just add some heat here. You can pretty much touch it. This material is very heat resistant, so I just tap my soldering iron to it here and there. And it'll shrink just like the other one I was showing earlier. You could also use a lighter in a pinch, but I already have a soldering iron right here. And if I touch it on the part that I'm not worried about, it's probably fine. Alright, where's my other wire? Here you are. Okay, so now we can add some solder. Put on your safety glasses now. And we can add it right to these legs. The other reason I wear safety glasses while I work is I usually have the AC running at full blast, and if you've ever blown a fan towards where you're working on, it's just not, I don't recommend it because the solder can pop. Okay, so we want ground on the inside and our voltage wire on the outside. So here I am connecting ground. And then our voltage wire, the black color faces our isolator. And then I test to see if the connection is decent. Just a slight tug, and you know you're good to go. Alright, it's starting to look a lot like our other circuit. These two wires will connect to the battery. So these three wires are towards our Zune, are connecting to our Zune. And these two need to connect here. I'm going to do it from this side because I can fold it in half if I need to after all. Our inductor goes towards our voltage. You might be wondering, why do you need an inductor, a capacitor, and a 5-volt isolator? And I can link that video in the description of how it helps ground out noise. It really does help ground out noise. Okay, not the best solder work there, but it'll do. And then ground. I'll clean this up. Add some solder. Okay, and all I did was disconnect this wire. Whoops. There it is, reconnected, but we need it to also connect to our ground. Let's hope these stay in place. There. Sort of messy, but we don't care about how pretty it is. We just care that it works. And if I check my work, I don't see any overlap, which is good. I think we made it. Now I can go back with the voltmeter and double check. Oh. Wow. Okay, I guess not. I guess we're missing one connection at least. Alrighty. Okay, that looks better. I can go back, as I was saying, with a multimeter and check for continuity. And I'll do that in case things don't work out, but hey, here it is. A fully completed Bluetooth circuit. Now if you really wanted to, you can go and install this in the Zune 30 and it'll work. Every time you turn on your Zune's wireless, this will turn on and the red LED will flash saying that it's looking for a device. Ideally you put your Bluetooth headset or speakers into pair mode at the same time and it all just works out. Now I have a few different ways I can test this. I have a power supply with 3.7 volts, but for our sake, assuming that nobody has access to a power supply that you can set to 3.7 volts, I'm going to do something else. Well, I was going to go about this a more clever way, but these two are going to connect to the battery. This is a spare battery, by the way. My brown wire is going to connect to ground, and my red's going to connect to power. So I can test out my circuit before I install it using either a 3.7 volt battery or power supply, probably like 3 AA's in series. My only drawback is I don't have like a, I don't think I have a better way to go about this. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Sorry for the loud pop. That's gonna be hard to see. There is my voltmeter. And you can test the voltage of a battery by measuring the voltage like so. So we got a 3.9-ish volt battery, and that's pretty healthy considering it's rated at 3.7 volts. Or it's fully charged, or both. Regardless, we're gonna get what we expect. So if I hold these wires against each other, do my best here. I don't want to solder them together so that I have the ability to remove them. And I have a breadboard, but I realized I have it glued down somewhere. Let me put that there so we can see if the LED light comes on. And let's ground this out. There we go. So it's flashing, meaning that it's in pair mode. It's looking for a device. That means it's working. I don't have enough fingers for this, but ideally, I did this off screen already. You can either check right here across the two legs of your capacitor, or over here in your 5-volt isolator, and you can see the power. I guess even here it works. And you can see the voltage coming out of your step-up voltage regulator. And if you're dissatisfied with your voltage, you can come here and crank this little potentiometer clockwise, counterclockwise, until you figure out exactly where you want it. So I already checked it off screen. I get 4.4 volts. And it's really a moot point because you really don't need to step up the voltage for this module. But 4.4 volts is fine. Once you start getting closer to 5 volts, you start burning more power than you really need to. And yeah, Bluetooth circuit tested, everything working as expected. Now comes the really fun part. Is I need to get in here and I need to remove the aux jack so I can solder onto it. Now if this white clip wasn't here, I might just not remove it and try to solder around it, but because it's there, it's going to be really hard to get in there. Yep, so I'm going to remove it. I'm going to solder these wires to it, and then I'm also going to solder these to my battery management system there. And lastly, our shutdown switch, I'll solder it to the right chip that's in here, and we'll have a completed Bluetooth mod. Okay, this part I've never done before, so this is all new ground, new territory for me. Where did I leave the correct bit? Right here. Okay, so you unscrew the aux. I'm assuming, not 100% sure, but I assume that's what keeps it in place. Like I said, this is new territory for me, but hopefully this is fruitful. Now, I think you want to peel, and let's open this up again. Come on, come on. I think you want to peel this whole thing out. And this circuit actually anchors here. We might not need to get so far since we're just soldering 3 points. That's all we're worried about. So I'm going to try pulling it up the top, pulling this out a little bit. I think this is like a noise reducing magnet. And maybe this needs to come off as well if we're going to do this. Can always put it back on provided I don't tear the ribbon underneath. That would be awful, especially after having come so far. You know what? On second thought, I probably don't even need to do this. Okay, just making sure it wasn't torn underneath there. I was a bit concerned for a moment. Let's pull up from this corner instead. These always come loose from here. And I sometimes, there it is, I have to end up gluing this back in place with a little bit of super glue to have a functional hold switch again. And this wire, we're actually going to use this wire on the circuit. I don't use the radio a lot and would definitely prefer some clear Bluetooth signal versus the radio. So we're going to undo this real quick. Probably should have undone it anyway since the chip is under there. Put this here. Lift this up. And our radio signal antenna is free. Okay. Let's go this way now. I want to be very gentle. I assume this is very easy to rip. This should actually peel out away from this too. Got it out of the tabs. Now how do I pull it up? I feel like it's glued in place. And yep, it's glued in place. But lucky for me, it's not super strong. Let's just be careful and gentle with this. Oh, look at that. I've already stripped off the antenna. Whoops. Maybe there's an easier way. It's giving me pause. Just bent part of the metal chassis away. Maybe I can just lift up this corner just a tad. Oh, I'm pulling the whole frame, which is probably better. Okay, I'm just going to stick a pick in there. The last thing I want to do is break something in here. This is not a great first attempt. Great. Okay, perhaps picking it up just this much is enough. I can pretty much access all the parts of the aux I need after I get it lifted a little. Okay, let's just work from here. Oh boy. Okay, so I think this is the left channel, and then middle up here is right, and then top is ground. Let's work that way. Left channel is yellow. Also, I apologize if I scared anyone with how badly I butchered this. But here we go. Add a little flux to that spot. Let's add our left channel. A little flux and a little solder, I mean. There's our left channel, perfectly placed. Okay, so then we have right channel on the top middle here. Let me try to rotate this for the lighting. It's going to be a bit hard to hit. got the middle one. Oh. I'm gonna find a good angle for this last one. Ideally without tearing my ZIF cable. See if I could pop this up a little more. No, not really. Okay. I can see it. Okay. All right, got it. Okay, now we said that far one was ground. I'm going to prioritize that one. Very tough to reach. I think I got it. And lastly, the right channel. Let's not melt that wire while we're at it. I think that's it. Nope, I had to pull out this orange wire just a tad because it looks like it's making contact with the ground. Alright, looks like everybody's happy. Last but not least, I get to unwrap this. I say unwrap like it was going to be easy to do. Well, the biggest headache is over. I'm sure there's a more thorough way to pull that out of there. Someone can educate me on it later. Okay, the very last step, I suppose, besides closing it all up. Okay, I'm going to try to come in from the same side. That looks awful. And if it looks awful, you could always add some fresh solder. Alright. Still doesn't look great, but we'll take it. And last but not least, there we go. And you can see the Bluetooth searching for devices. That takes care of all our soldering today. Let's close this back up. And let's close this back up. Now this wire, it did strip the entire antenna portion. I don't recommend making the same mistakes I've been making here. Let's get this chip out of here. Let's get these folded into place. This got a bit ruined. They were already falling apart, but that's not going to help much. The radio antenna is completely donezo, and I really wanted to reuse it for the quality. Okay, that's back in place. Moral of the story is don't unpeel this if you can help it. Okay. Well, I guess we should test this before... Oh, I missed a spot. I missed a spot right there. This piece. One more solder point. Okay, that's prepped. Now we glue metal to metal. And all set. So, now we have everything open. Everything's surgically complete. We can test for functionality. Let me just make sure this closes properly. And hopefully I did not break anything. I'm really hoping this will go from experiment to tutorial. So. Okay, come on, come on. Go where I want you to go. This can go over. This needs to come this way. Both of these. Under the side is probably good. Right there. And now all this needs to fold. Nice and neat in there somehow. Okay. Let's just turn on the Zune. Low battery. Well, I'll charge it and I'll be back. Okay, well, I still have the Zune opened up to kind of test if it's working or not. So when I turn wireless on, it turns on the module. I turn wireless off, and it does nothing. Nope, there it goes. Turns off the module. Perfect. Turn it on, and turn it off, just to double check things. And dead. You can tell that it turns off when the wireless symbol goes off too. So I have enough battery to test that. I actually already connected some Bluetooth headphones while I was charging these guys, so it's already paired, and it does kind of sort of remember the last paired device. But I'm going to try to pair it to a brand well, brand new Bluetooth device, and let's listen. So there's wireless on. There's my Bluetooth speaker searching for devices. This will flash until it pairs correctly. Which can take a while. Especially if your phone is hogging all the Bluetooth. Sometimes I'll turn Bluetooth off on my phone so that it's not stealing the speaker's pairing initiative. It's a bit fin. There it is. Music, shuffle all. All right. Not a lot of lag either. But great, it works. So there's proof of concept. Now the fun part will be packing it back up and trying to see what I want to do with the antenna. So let me turn it off. There it goes. Alright. So this part's already pretty much flat enough that it shouldn't have issues. But I'll still try to tape it down better in a bit here. Fold this back. I've pushed it down. Okay, there. Perfect. This part needs to come all the way down. This can go... It's arranging itself pretty well already. That's the whole reason I made this flexible, is to maneuver that. Okay. This already looks pretty much good enough. Although I wish I could get it there. A bit lower profile. So now I could close it up, and I have this DS Lite antenna here, which I could connect here. I could shear off this built-in antenna. But first, I would kind of like to see, I guess even though the Zune's off, there's still like a bug where this might not turn all the way off. So I'll look into that too. There it is, finally. Maybe the battery just died. Yep, that one sounds more likely. Or maybe one of my connections is bad. Let's see. Oh, looks good. I think my battery's just really close to dead, so I'll have to charge it up after I get it closed. But I'm going to try to close it up, and then we'll see how it sounds. And if it sounds awful, then I'll consider installing the DS Lite antenna to give it a bit of a range boost. Okay, there. Make sure your hold switch is good. Alright, so far so decent. These things are always a nightmare to open and close, let me tell you. Yep, and I forgot that I messed up that plastic bit there. So I do professionally repair Zunes for people. I know the question's going to come up of, wow, you made a Zune Bluetooth mod work on the Zune 80 and 120. Can you do that for my Zune? And my answer is not yet. There's obviously some things I need to get down first. But maybe once I've had a bit more practice, I can open this up to others. Right now, this stays as a tutorial. Alright, looks pretty decent. Could have had a better close on this corner. Well, that's what happens when your clips start to weaken. Oh, and of course, I actually forgot this. Which is not too big of a deal. Next time I open it up, I'll install it. But let me get these. Which, these are a bit of a moot point now too. They're not really holding on to anything. Not really. That's what happens with these old, aging electronics that weren't built to be repaired or modded. They don't like being repaired or modded. Okay. This could have gone a little better, but light is still on, still working. Zune's powering on. Let's bring the Bluetooth speaker over and see if it remembers it. Speaker's on. Let's hope this doesn't just die instantly. Looks like it remembered the previous device and paired just fine. So far so good. No need to even use a different antenna. Looks like the signal's coming out the top just fine. Well, there you have it. Zune 80 Bluetooth mod. Cheers.